Welcome to Inspiring Possible. I'm Christy Pennison, former stuck person turned therapist and dream consultant. Are you feeling stuck, overwhelmed, uncertain, or just need a little inspiration? Then I want to help you gain the clarity, confidence, and courage to create possibilities and live a life you love. Because folks, life's too short to be miserable. YOLO, Inspiring Possible listeners, thank you for joining us on another episode. I'm really excited because, one of the things in my journey in leadership, really, and learning to be a leader and trying to figure this thing called life out as a leader is I have sometimes struggled with really giving myself enough credit for some of my skills and abilities. Sometimes I think, wait, why should I do that? Somebody else could do it way better. It's crazy, these narratives that you create in your head, because sometimes you can start to look at somebody else and think, oh, well, they wrote that book or they did that thing, or they're really a rock star leader in their organization or in the roles that they take on. They just seem to have it all together. I just don't think I could do it as well as them. Or I don't think that could be something I could ever do. So we really just start to get into these narratives that limit us from really pushing past our comfort zone so that we can also create possibilities not only for ourselves, but for others. But if this is you, like it has been me, guess what? Never fear, I'll keep listening, because we have a great guest today, and that is Tiffany Houser. And she is like all about helping us discover our self-worth so that we can lead with more confidence. So welcome to the show, Tiffany.
Thank you, Christy. And hello, everyone listening.
Yeah. So Tiffany, tell me kind of like, why did this become your passion spot to help people learn to figure out, hey, you know what? You're a cool person. You have gifts and talents and abilities, and lead from that.
This is such a great question. And Christy, I was thinking that the whole time you were talking, I'm like, this is part of the story where we make up these, you were saying you have this narrative in your mind. My vernacular, I say, I make up these stories. Like I make a story up that certain people have it all figured out. And if
they've arrived.
And
I'm still back here.
I'm less than. Yeah. And so I'm an executive coach, and I coach senior leaders in Fortune companies. And I also coach co-founders of hyper-growth companies where they have 50 or more people and growing in their organization. And just like your narrative, I used to think, if you're running a Fortune 500 company, or you're starting and scaling an amazing company, which I use your product or your service, that's wild to me, that you must have it all figured out. And yet the same thing as you shared, Christy, is it is those moments when we are, and there's so many ways we could say this, but for the podcast today, we'll just say, when we are tested or we want something bigger, more, or different than we currently have, which is all of us, by the way.
That's right.
Or else we'd want our life to be exactly like it was since
and if you're listening to this podcast specifically, there's probably something within you that's like, I would like to have things that I haven't had before.
Absolutely.
I'd like to do things I haven't done before,
Absolutely. Yeah. And for a lot of us, it's not like a material thing or, like having something tangible. And so what started happening is I'm coaching all these people, and of course I notice themes. That's part of my job, to understand like what's really going on here, because usually what people are saying is not really what's the issue or what they really want. It's underneath, and it's down there in your belief system, or in your vision, whatever you call it. And it wasn't until last year, 2023, I would say about the first 3 new clients that came to me, looking to hire me as their coach, they actually said it. I feel like an imposter. And that was the first time, actually, I've heard it before, but not with people who I wasn't already coaching. That was the first time I heard people who didn't hire me yet. They're just letting me know what they're up against.
Yeah, this is the first conversation. They're getting real vulnerable real fast. Like, let me just tell you what I'm feeling and why I need help.
And for those people who know me, vulnerability, honesty, and authenticity are like top values of mine. And in the body of work that I put together and my company, how we coach and facilitate and train, those are the core pieces. And yet, when it was the third, I remember this so clearly, Christy, like the third person said it. I literally leaned back in my chair. I was like, okay, I'm just going to time out for 1 second because I had a moment and I'm very, very like build high rapport with my clients, even the clients I'm just meeting for the first time, because they're just still trying to determine if they're going to hire me or not. I timed him out and I was like, I just need to say thank you for your honesty. I acknowledge you just laying it all out and being very transparent because that's how you transform things. That's how you move beyond them and not let them keep you in your comfort zone, as you mentioned, Christy, or keep you away from whatever it is that you do want. And the biggest thing that I work with on clients is not necessarily their skills and their strategies, but it's really that mindset, how they feel, how they operate, how they show up, not what they're doing per se, because that we could take care of that later. Because if you're not feeling a certain way and your mindset is not in alignment with what it is you're up to, or you're deeply stuck in the fear or the insecurities or the imposter feelings, we can work on the best strategies in the world and they're not going to get you very far anyway. So that's pretty much how I got to where I am now and put that all together into a body of work we call self-worth advantage. And the reason we called it self-worth is because that is the antidote. That is the remedy. That is the solution, the answer. It is the advantage, self-worth, and which is very rarely talked about in the workplace or in the entrepreneurial space. We talk
Well, and
about self-worth.
let's talk about the cost of not doing this work. Cause I mean, I think if anybody's listening and you've ever been in an organization and had a leader that you just felt like came at you in all different kinds of ways, or maybe a toxic workplace that just wasn't very, because I think everybody has had this experience at some point in their life if they've been in a workplace setting. So, what's making me think about this is what is the cost if a leader cannot identify their self worth or be able to have some of these mindset shifts? Like
Yeah.
the cost of not figuring out how to identify this in your life.
Yeah, there's so many. That's actually a module in the course. It's funny.
Oh, really?
It's like the hidden ROI and self-worth and the
Disclaimer, I've not done it yet. So.
Yeah, I know. I was like and
Did you
it's
see my
like
course?
also the cost of the imposter feelings.
Yeah.
And you opened up the door to a good one because um the cost is very high. And really, it's one of those compounding costs that you may not experience like explicitly, like, we just lost a lot of revenue, or half my team quit, or someone filed a harassment charge. It's nothing like explicit unless it is something explicit, because there's two ways the imposter feelings show up. The insecurities is the common way, which is I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough, or, whatever the dot, dot, dot enough.
Whatever we'll fill in the blank, fill in the
Yeah.
blank.
And I'm sure between you and I, Christy, that's mine is a laundry list. I'm sure you have some as well. And then the other piece to the common imposter feeling is just not being yourself. So you're not being authentically you. So talk about those costs adding up of you not showing up as you. So you're not adding your own opinions, your own insight. You're just agreeing, conforming, getting involved in that group think, or you have the answer and you're just not saying it because you don't want to look bad and you want to either fit in, or you're afraid to get it wrong, even though you know in your gut that you have the right answer. So that's the common imposter feelings. The toxic imposter feelings are you feel the same way as the common imposter feelings, yet you take that out on your colleagues, on your people. So instead of projecting that not enoughness on yourself, you don't beat yourself up, or you might for like a very short moment, and then you start projecting that beat up out onto your team, and all the relationships you have. And, you've heard of the term grinding.
Mhm.
Yeah. So you might be grinding your team, overworking your team, micromanaging your team, saying one thing to your team, but showing up a different way. Or the company has this happened to a team I coached 3 years ago. The company had these incredible mandates and cultural like agreements. Yet this team that I was brought in to coach, the leader was like, never heard of those. Don't know what you're talking about. Yet it's like a all hands rollout. And this was a very senior leader in the team. And one of those agreements was we do not email each other or text or anything after 5. And we do not text anybody or do work on the weekend. And this, again, is a Fortune 500 company. And I was like, wow, that's really beautiful that
What
this
a great
company,
agreement.
yeah, this company of like 30,000 people, this was one of the agreements that they actually care about people's work life integration. And, we were still kind of in the COVID mess back then
Mhm.
and just protecting people or, creating boundaries around people's well being and making sure we were balancing out this new way of life we were in. And this leader kept doing everything, texting and emailing after 5 on the weekend, and not just one or two. It would be like a Ritalin infested, like a million, like crazy ex girlfriend or boyfriend stuff. And it was interesting because the actual leader right below that I was actually coaching one on one, even though I was doing work with the whole team. Um, One of the questions I asked her, I was like, do you actually enjoy this? And of course, her consciousness said, no, I don't. And I said to her, because she had shared some things about her other work environments before this organization, and they all sounded the same. And I'm like, you're the constant in this equation. And so I'm going to ask you again, does some part of you, and maybe not enjoy, maybe let's change that out.
Yeah, but it's familiar. It's familiar.
Exactly. Does some part of you like really like get like a drive off of this? Like you get a gust of like, oh yeah, like, and she didn't answer right away, but a week later she was like, I was thinking about this, Tiffany. And it kind of like was heavy when I first realized it, but then it was like a relief to say like, yeah, I do like that because I feel valuable when people ask
Mm.
my opinion. What do I think? I felt like, this leader and I were really collaborating and she trusted me. And it was a little bit of that, but it was still like overworking. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
on-
yeah. But
so
it's understanding she understood, like, after she reflected on it, there is a root thing that's making
absolutely.
me it's
Yeah.
like an outside validation that I'm needed,
Yeah. Yeah.
and even though there's parts of me that wish there were more boundaries, I also, if there were more boundaried, I may not feel as needed or valued.
Yeah.
Which
Absolutely.
goes back to, I guess, what we're going to talk about is self worth. And it's interesting, Tiffany. I was having a conversation earlier this week, and somebody was just talking about this about a company. Sometimes they have values or they have agreements or principles that are cultural agreements.
Mhm.
Or this is how we're going to do culture. This is how we're going to do our work. And how there is sometimes, if there's not that awareness, there can be a mismatch and an inauthenticity of like, I'm not following through with this. What it actually is said that this is how we are. And then what we're doing is two different things.
Yeah. And that in and of itself, that's a whole other topic, but
That's
that
a whole
causes
another
a
podcast
lot.
episode.
Yeah, that causes a lot of breakdowns. I've worked within several different organizations that did that, and none of it turned out well. None of it,
Yeah.
So
Well, what happened to this person you were working with? Because it almost sounds like there was a self discovery.
oh,
Was
absolutely.
Yeah. So what was kind of the outcome from that awareness of themselves?
The biggest part for her was that relief because again, projecting out, like blaming her boss for texting her and emailing her. And because she was compromising her self worth, instead of her speaking up and saying something, she was taking it out on her boss
Okay.
and not
And then
directly,
creating that
indirectly.
blame complaint cycle
Yes.
that then leaves you vulnerable because you don't have any power to change anything.
Exactly.
in a lot of
And
ways, like invulnerable in a not like
yeah,
not an empowering way.
yes. And so when that hit her, when the relief part hit her, she actually said, she was like, I think I like this way of working. And so we worked around reframing the way of working. Specifically, this is one area that I work on with everybody, whether it's in the self-worth advantage or not, is the language we use and noticing the word choices we're using. And are they empowering and really moving the situation forward, or are they keeping the situation alive? And and usually I'm talking about something that's not working. Man, did people really like to complain about things that aren't working, and they keep it alive. So
Mhm.
whatever's not
They
working,
feed it. Keep
oh
on
yeah.
feeding it.
And so we worked on transforming her language and really understanding, and mainly the language with herself, because she got to align herself and reconcile. I do get a drive from being needed and being involved and being, integrated into all these decisions. I do like that. Now, what I may not like is the timing of this. So we worked on that because at the time she had two little ones 3 years ago. Well, they're still little. um, but it was, and of course her husband was like, what are you doing? It's Saturday. Like, let that
Yeah.
go. Um, so yeah, so we worked on her language, and then like I said, her language with herself, and just really being honest with herself, because that's the piece, like I said in the beginning, the vulnerability, honesty, and authenticity. A lot of the hot water we find ourselves in is when we're not being honest with ourselves. We are dishonest with people every day. Yes, news alert, we are all dishonest with people every day. Yet the real compromise of our self-worth is the dishonesty we have with ourselves. Because
Mhm.
really, one of my mentors just said this recently. We teach people how to treat us. I'm going to say that again. We teach people how to treat us. So if we are lying to ourselves, it's going to be pretty easy for people to lie to us. Yet we get so angry when people lie to us, and we don't really do that to ourselves consciously. We do subconsciously. We kind of, I said I'm going to the gym, but I don't. That's a little internal subconscious
Mhm.
stuff. A little bit of that is conscious, but a lot of this stuff is going on subconsciously. So, talking about the price that we're paying, this causes a lot of inflammation, a lot of havoc on our nervous system, our sleep, our energy, all of that, which a lot of people who are starting a business, running a business, or a leader in an enterprise business, they forget your life is more valuable. Your life, like I'm alive, I'm breathing, I'm here on earth, is more valuable than any results, profits, productivity, whatever. And really it pains me, especially when you see on social media like F cancer or this disease or this ailment, or I had this, and I keep thinking, I'm like, I wonder what your lifestyle is. I wonder how you are with your work, because I became an executive coach not because I went to executive coach school. That doesn't happen, people. That's not a thing. um, but I started off, I'm a certified coach, but I started off as a health and wellness coach. And I was working with a lot of people, and the methodology that I'm trained in, it's never about what you want. Like, you say you want to lose 20 pounds, it's always about what's important about that. And then whatever you say there, what's important about that. And you get down to the real reason why, which in this program is called your motivating factor. That's what we're working on, not losing 20 pounds, because we could lose these 20 pounds pretty quickly. But if this motivating factor is never addressed or activated, you're probably going to gain the 20 pounds back.
Yeah, you're gonna you may do it for a little bit, but it's not gonna be sustainable. That's what I'm hearing you
No,
say.
no.
Yeah.
And so just really supporting people with understanding that it wasn't about the weight. 90% of my clients, it was about their work, their
Mhm.
relationship to work, whether it was their team, their boss, their income, their their desire to start their own business, all of it was leading back that way. And so I said, instead of this health, I'm just going to go get trained on this. And it was, there is no executive coaching training. Maybe there is in 2024, but still, my methodology is transformational coaching. It's deeper than communication skills and collaboration. It's way
Yeah,
deeper
it's
than
getting to
that.
that the why underneath and the why it's important to solve it too, is what
Yeah.
I'm hearing, you
Well, yeah,
know?
to get to your beliefs and your behaviors. That's where I specialize in. Getting to the beliefs you have about why you have what you have or why you don't have what you have. And then the behavior that leads to either what you want or what you don't want. And, formulating that into the direction you do want to move in. So we want to and it's funny because most of my clients, when they first meet me or, we have that kind of conversation before we decide to work together. It's, well, how do you do this? How do you, I'm like, I could tell you
Every
all
yeah.
about this.
Can you give me the 10 steps to getting
Yeah.
to XYZ?
And I say, yes, I can get that to you right now for free. And secret, you could Google it. It's all available. No secret out there.
It's so true. It's all on the internet,
It's
folks.
all on the
If
internet.
you really
Yeah,
want to know the knowledge part of it, right?
exactly. So the question I ask is this something you want to know or something you want to change? So you are having a challenging relationship with your team. You think your team is not productive, they aren't performing the way you want. That I could give you millions of strategies and tips and programs and tools and resources to
Books.
upgrade your team dynamic and your team performance. Yet, if you are not working on the relationship you have with yourself and the relationship you have with each person on that team, and it's not as deep, some people are like, I don't have time to build a relationship with each person on my team. I'm like, well, that's a mistake. Because if you're on a team, that's all it is. All business is relationships. And we learned that from our friends in the 80s, like business is just about relationships.
Yeah.
Um, because no matter what, a business is a transaction, and a transaction is with a person or a person or a company and a company or a person and a company. And that's it. Those are relationships. And so when we just want to get to the how and the tactics, then you'll see a little bit of change, but it's really the behavior and belief and mindset shifts that really we work on.
Yeah. What do you know what as you're talking, I'm starting to think about this concept, right, of our relationship to work, with work, and being in that relationship. What do you think is the hardest of the people that you've worked with for people just to create a more healthy relationship with their work? And it could be in their leadership or it could be, in their team dynamics. But what I've seen and even what I've experienced in my own life is that sometimes our relationship with work cannot always be the healthiest. And I know there's probably a lot of different reasons for different people having not healthy relationships with work, but what do you find are the biggest barriers for people to having a more healthier relationship to their work with their work?
Yeah, it's going to go back to the one piece around honesty. When you're honest with yourself, that's the biggest barrier. You're just not being honest with yourself. I've coached so many people who even their company hired me. Well, I'm on their roster of executive coaches. So the company is paying for this coaching engagement, and they're
They're like,
like,
"Hey, you go get some coaching from Tiffany."
oh, no,
Pretty
no, no,
much.
no. It was more of I'm on the roster. They get to meet a few people on the roster. Then
Okay,
they
so they
pick.
say, but yeah, they were like, "We're offering this as a benefit of our
Yes,
organization. Go
yes.
meet with this coach or pick a coach that you want to get help from."
And there have been a few people who were like, I hate this company. I'm ready to leave. I'm already going on interviews. And I'm like, whoa, okay, great. So you're being honest with me. What had you not be honest with yourself sooner and with the like your team, your people or HR partner and all these things? Because one of the things I love sharing now, if I coach anybody else in that space, is you're just running away from a problem. That problem will follow you if you don't get clear on what it is you want. What are you looking to create with your profession, with your time? Because that's what you're doing. You're giving your time and your wisdom and your energy to something or someone. And so, if you are not honest with how you are making your living, honest with how you are creating your livelihood, it doesn't make you filled with joy. And people think that is so woo woo. And I feel for those people. I'm like, you don't have joy. You don't find joy in what you do. And I get it. The economy and the news make everything sound terrible. There's no jobs. They don't pay. Everything's expensive. You need 10 jobs to go grocery shop. I'm like, that's BS, but that's such BS. And the people I have coached, because I used to do career coaching and I would call it professional purpose. That used to
Ooh,
be
I love that professional
oh yeah.
purpose.
That was my thing before I became a an executive coach. I had a journey. So yeah, went
Mm-hmm.
from health and wellness coaching to career, then the professional purpose, and then now where I am with executive coaching. And really, it was coaching people to get clear on what it is they want and really get clear on what it is they don't want. Because when I talked to my clients in that space, we kept finding they were finding the same job over and over again, but for maybe 20,000 more, 50,000 more, a different industry, a different company. And I'm like, you're just running away from the vehicle, but the journey you're on is you're still going down the same road, but you're just upgrading the car that you're on. And I get it. I get it. Cause sometimes, like we have a child or a second child, we get sick, our parents get sick, COVID happens, weird stuff goes, the roof leaks in the house, weird things happen. That still doesn't mean you are not worth the time and energy to get clear with yourself.
Yeah.
Christy, I even forget what the question.
It's okay, but you know what I'm thinking about now?
Yeah.
I'm so lost in this. I'm like in this conversation so much now. But one of the things that I'm really taking from what you're saying is,
Mhm.
and it's something we talk about on this podcast. It's like one of the foundational tenets. When I was like, okay, I really have this project that I really want to get out into the world, and I want to make it a podcast, and it's going to be inspiring possible. I said, what is the one thing that's helped me transform my life to a way where I do have joy in work? Now, does that mean that there's not stressful moments? Yes, there's stressful moments. It's still like anything. It's not like Pollyanna and you walk down the street skipping and hopping and every day's a bright, shiny day. Okay. But I do find a deep joy and satisfaction in what I do. But I didn't always, or there were points in time where there was workplace, I guess, toxicity or workplace misalignment. Let's say misalignment. That's a better
Yeah.
word since we're
Mhm.
trying to reframe our words here and pick the right words. Misalignment. And I had to be honest with myself. I had to be honest with what I was afraid of. I had to be honest, like if I jumped out of that job, I had to be honest about like, what is going to bring me joy? And I didn't know it all at once. I didn't put all the pieces
Mhm.
together magically in one moment and, just go on into my very merry professional life. But taking the time to get clear and be honest with yourself is what I'm hearing you say. That's what's not working for you or what would seem like an awesome experience for you. And just being honest enough with yourself about what you feel like you could want. And I think so many times, like you said, we're moving on to the next thing, or we're saying, okay, well, this place is offering more money over here, or this seems to be a shinier place over there. And then these problems continue to persist in these different environments, if
Yeah.
not for everybody. But what I'm hearing you say, this is an experience for a lot of people. And it's just taking the time to say, like, you know what, at this phase of life, again, I think sometimes seasonality is really important too, right? Like at this phase of life, what is most important to me? And it
Mhm.
might be most important to me to say, yes, I want this extra $50,000 a year. That sounds real nice because I value financial security and monetary. And I'll be honest, I'm good with dealing with all the craziness for that.
Yep.
And
And
that could be
that's
what you're being
alignment.
honest,
That's
you know?
alignment. When you're clear
Yeah.
on the price you're willing to pay for receiving what you want, That's alignment. There is joy. There may not be joy like, Christmas Day, but there is peace in that.
Yeah.
I'm not lifting expectations. There's probably going to be drama here, and I'm going to get okay with it. I don't need to be okay with it, but I'm going to get okay with it. And one of the things I coach my clients on is how can we be the solution? So if let's just say your back is up against it, you cannot quit your job. Like you're like, I got to bring
Yeah.
home this bacon.
I don't want to leave. I want to be here.
Yeah. How can you be a part of the solution? Because it's what I said earlier. We get so pulled into that trap of being stuck in the problem and giving life to that, complaining and just being resentful or miserable quietly and not being part of the solution, which again, a lot of that I coach my clients on. And it's even in the course, there's a module on language because it's so
So
profound
powerful.
and it works. Like it's just, we call it the language lab. And when people get to that part, when they're doing the self-pace, we always get emails like, oh my God, I didn't realize the words I was using was stressing me out and like causing me like overwhelm. And it's just
When
really
there might have not even been there. I might have made it all up just by my words and my thoughts.
well, and they could see how they were enrolling themselves in the drama,
Hmm.
in the pieces that were in breakdown or, and really whatever you focus your energy on, that's your experience in the moment. So if you keep focusing on the BS, the breakdowns, what's not working, how awful this is, that's your experience in the moment. So they always say whatever you resist persists. But I also like to add to that, wherever your focus is what you're going to bring on in the moment. Because I always like to let people know you could shift your focus in a millisecond. It's not
Hmm.
like this like deep thing that you need to go take a year-long course to understand how to shift your focus. Um, and so, yeah, it really is going back to that self-worth piece and not your worth in I'm worth six figures or I'm worth, it's not that. That is a slice of it later on once you get grounded in your self worth to know I am worthy of whatever it is that will bring me joy. Because that's right there what people don't think. They don't think they're worthy of it. They say, oh, well, that's not for me. That's for you or for other people, but that's not for me. I can't do that. That's not, no, no, thank you. And so they stay in their comfort zone, which most likely has very little joy. And that's a longer format thing that I could talk about later. But really, once you get clear on what you're worthy of and getting clear on what is not adding worth or value to like this, nope, that is not aligned with me. Anytime the culture is like this, or they treat their employees like that, or I've had clients say this, the way they build their product or deliver their service, that's not part of me, like part of my values or whatever that may be. Because anytime you go in and you're doing that 40 plus hours a week, you're breaking pieces of you off or just breaking pieces of you. And then it's no wonder you are that 20 pounds overweight. No wonder you can't sleep. No wonder your relationship or marriage is not as great as it used to be because there is no work life balance. It's all, you are one person. You are at work sometimes and you are at home other times. There is no cut you in half and send your
Yeah.
work half to work and your
We
other
can't like separate ourselves and send the top half to work and this bottom part stays at home.
which is funny because there is a show on HBO called Severance. I've only seen the first season. I'm like, where's the second season? Because it's
It
kind
was
of
severed.
shocking. Yeah. It's really interesting. Not to give it away, but it's a little quirky, but
I
it's
haven't seen it
interesting.
yet, but I'm just thinking maybe the second
Interesting.
part doesn't come because of the
And
severance.
I'm a huge Parks and Rec fan, and
Hmm.
Adam Scott is the lead in that show. So that's Ben, if anybody remembers Parks and Rec. Um, so going back to the self worth piece, as I said, it's the antidote, it's the answer, it's the solution. When you truly get grounded into that, the sky's the limit for you, not only just professionally and in your leadership, it you value your health, your partnerships you have with your romantic partner, with your family, your friends. you value yourself to go out into the world and explore and, dabble in your hobbies and travel, all that stuff. You are creative. All the things, you don't suppress it all down because you think I can't or I shouldn't. That's you compromising your self worth. And, we focus the self worth advantage first on the workplace, specifically with leaders, because our theory is leaders have the most ripple effect in a company because they, of course, are leading teams. And once they embrace their self worth, it's contagious. It ripples out because
Well,
also part of your self worth is holding people in that space. Because when we see people valuing themselves and this is actually a part of the course as well, not like people being arrogant or cocky or, bulldozing or steamrolling, putting themselves first. But yes, put yourself first. We can talk about that later. But really, when you show up that way, it evokes that in other people. Oh, you have boundaries? I see how I can start creating.
oh, I
And
could do that too, maybe.
yeah. Oh, you know your capacity? Oh, I didn't even know what capacity meant. Tell me more. What does
Oh, she
capacity mean?
took time off and made sure to put a respond that I'm not going to be in office and set boundaries on their time away.
Exactly. And oh, she actually like plays saxophone in a band. I didn't even know. Oh, so she's pursuing her, we don't keep these things secret from our people. And people in the workplace, I'm not saying you need to you become an open book and everybody needs to know everything about you. Yet I'm letting you know that the way you show up at work speaks volumes of how you are treating yourself and how people are treating each other. So if you're part of the gossip, if you're part of the drama, if you're part of the anger or resentment or frustration, you're just rippling that out. And experiment one day with just being trusting, trust everything, trust everyone. Just one day, trust it, trust everything. One day, be curious instead of judging or asking a million, just not asking a million questions, but, you know, questioning everything. That's what I meant to say. Get curious instead of questioning and being cynical and skeptical about everything. Practice one day being compassionate. Someone's late, rather than bringing the hammer down on them, start with the curiosity, but roll it up with some compassion. Because I can guarantee you've been late for something, especially a work engagement. And we never know what it is until we get curious because everything else is an assumption. They're lazy, they don't care, they're disrespectful. That's all assumptions until you have a conversation, a curious and hopefully a compassionate conversation with somebody to get to it. Especially if it's someone who's consistently late, something's going on in their life. I guarantee it.
As you're talking about all this, it's making a lot of sense to me. This is the reason why we're focusing on self worth. And the first thing that we're focusing on is more the relationship with work. Because the truth is, whenever you said time, I mean, the majority of our time for most people, I'm not saying everyone, but you spend a lot of your life and a lot of your time at work. And
Girl,
if
and
that is not a
especially,
good, if that's not a good
yeah,
relationship, that's
and
not good.
especially when we were going to work before COVID. So
Hmm.
think about the commute and like getting ready in the morning. Like that is a lot of time we were dedicating to the work experience. So yes, we do spend a lot of time. And I used to do this whole thing breaking it down. It's more
It's a
time
lot.
than we typically spend in our life. So
Well, and
interesting.
what's crazy is speaking of like any type of training that someone does in their profession or schooling or whatever, sometimes you can spend a lot of time, energy, effort, money, right? To be able to set yourself up for a certain profession that you would
Mhm.
like to enter into. And the reality is that sometimes you still need to work on valuing yourself so that you can actually like not feel like you're stuck in a certain place in work. So it's all making sense to me. I'm drawing a lot of lines, a lot of connections. Hopefully, if you're listening, some of the stuff Tiffany is saying, you're like, yes, oh, that makes sense. Maybe I need to work on some of this myself. So that might bring me to my question, Tiffany. If somebody's like, you know what? Y'all have brought up a lot of good points. Tiffany's really gave me some insight into maybe I need to do some self worth work. That's maybe where I need to start. How can they find out about this program that you have, the Self Worth Advantage?
Yeah. Right there, selfworthadvantage.com. You can head on over there and find the course. Uh, you could also hire one of us as your coaches. We also do workshops and retreats, events, things of that nature. By the time this comes out, there will probably be our digital library will be up as well. There'll be some complimentary uh, guides and exercises there, as well as some more of the other stuff that will be there to take this work further on your own. And then you could also find me on LinkedIn at Tiffany Houser. And I'm sure
Okay,
it'll be
well,
somewhere because I forgot how the LinkedIn thing starts.
yeah, well, and we'll link it all up into the show notes too, so that people can find you if they're like, yeah, Tiffany brought some good points. I need to, I need to dive in because really, folks, I mean, as I'm just even reflecting on this, a lot of our time, like we were talking about, is spent in a workplace setting. And, finding joy at work and finding how to lean into yourself. I mean, I'm even going to do some of these experiments, even in my own workplace later on this week. But being able to lean into who you are and being able to be honest with yourself and then clear about things can really be a game changer in your ability to not just move through your work, but like you said, it's a trickle down effect to not only the people that you work with, but also in other areas of your life. So Tiffany, I do like to ask my guests this kind of final question, but knowing what you know now, if you were to be able to go back to younger you can pick an age. It could be younger you 10 years ago or younger you when you were a kid or in college or whatever. And to give, if you had one piece of advice you could tell younger you, what is the one thing that you might would leave with you?
I already know what it is. And I would go back to 18 because this is the earliest you can do something like this. There is an incredible transformational training you can do. I think it's like 4 months. I did it 5 years ago when I was 43, or now 6 years ago. My gosh, we're in 2024. And it was the most profound experience of my life, which supported me getting clear on all of the stories that I do make up, all of my insecurities. And it is in person. So you cannot hide or BS your way through this thing.
You got to
And
confront all
yeah,
the things. Huh?
and it was exactly what I personally needed in my life. I was such a BS artist up until that point. Very intelligent, very clever. I could talk my way in and out of things, no problem. I could get whatever I want because I'm very clever. And I would skip steps because I was impatient, skipping steps because I want to get to the finish line ASAP. And so I didn't realize the value in partnership, in relationship. I didn't even understand there was such a thing of having a relationship with yourself. And really, the honesty piece, I used to carry around so much shame for many different reasons. We can talk about that on another podcast. And because of that shame, I was not showing up. So, the common imposter, not being authentically you, I was making up like a whole other like thing about myself, like to like cover up the things that I was ashamed about, which now I have a relationship with all of those things and I accept them. I love them because they are what made me who I am. And by me discounting them and being ashamed of them, I was leaving pieces of me behind, wondering why I was never in a relationship, a loving, caring, real, genuine, committed relationship, wondering why my finances are like a roller coaster until this point, and just wondering why I never had like, I had a lot of people in my life, but I was never grounded or anchored into anything. But I was very joyful, very confident, um,
You
just
would have never known.
carefree. Yeah. But when you and for the younger listeners, if there are younger listeners, as you move through I'll be 50 next year, you will start to know what is important to you. And those are your signs to get connected with it. Get honest with what that is. Don't let that keep passing you by year after year because Christy, what does it say? What do they say? Like the biggest thing that people say on their deathbed is like, the things they
Yeah, it's
regret.
the regret of like, well, one of them's I wish I wouldn't have worked as much. That is one. I don't know if you've ever read Bronnie Ware's The Five Regrets of the Dying.
Haven't.
It's such a good book. She was a home care hospice nurse, and she talks about like these five common regrets. But that was one of them. I don't know if that's the one that you were going towards,
No,
but
no,
I
no.
wish I would have spent time doing more of the things that I loved. I wish I would have spent
There
time
it
with the people
is.
I cared about.
Yep.
Yes.
Spending time doing things that I love and with the people I love. And who says that can't earn you an incredible income as well? So that goes
Hmm.
back to getting clear on what it is you want and getting really clear on what it is you don't want. Because there is a occupation, there is a job, there is something. And if this younger generation if we are not learning anything from them, we need to learn you can make money so many different ways.
That's right. That's right.
How is
It's
it
not like just these different. Yeah. I mean, it is so
Yes.
crazy how open that is.
And
But
all of you amazing people who make these videos for Instagram and TikTok to show us your recipes and your home improvement things and your pet care. I love you. I learned so much from you. And I hope you are monetizing on that.
yeah,
Such
you
great
are too.
content. It's such great content.
Oh, I know. And I know, isn't it crazy about how we are now in a place and time that people have never been before, where you really can learn from so many different people from so many different walks of life or to do so many different things. Whereas that knowledge would have been limited unless you knew somebody proximity or you were able to have the privilege or the benefits and opportunities to be able to go seek learning elsewhere. It's
Well,
crazy.
yeah. And that's such a great point, Christy. And you just made me think that those people know their worth. They know their value. They made this dish. It tastes good. They were like, I'm just going to share. They didn't
I'm just going to share this
they didn't
with the
say like,
world.
what makeup should I put on? And like, what products should I buy? And like, they probably filmed it once or twice, maybe just, I think most of these people film things once because,
I
they're
think
like,
once you get in maybe they filmed it like 1,000 times the first one, but maybe the more they do it,
yeah,
more.
but
But
I
they
mean,
more they get confident in it, you know.
and to me, confidence is one of the key pillars or like the key ingredients of self worth. I know you are grounded in your self worth when you are confident. So, because it's not like confidence is like 100%. Like, I don't know anybody who's 100% confident all the time. No one.
Yeah, no,
There's
I haven't met
always
him yet,
something
Tiffany.
like, oh. And so, just to see people shine, I mean, to see little kids, this is how you blow a balloon and this is how you make, I'm like, knowing this is worthy and valuable and you and your friends probably have so much fun doing this and you want to share this joy with other people, like it just brings so much happiness to me. I love that stuff.
Yeah. Well, Tiffany, as we're kind of wrapping up, I do want to go ahead and appreciate and acknowledge you for helping people really discover their joy. Because I do think when you think about self worth, if people can identify why why they're worthy, and it's not necessarily for an outcome or for something that they're doing, but just for who they are,
Yeah.
then they can step into those roles that also give other people permission to do the same. But I want to acknowledge you because before you were able to really help people through this, you had to do the work yourself to be able to say,
Oof.
like, hey, I know why this work is important. I hear what everybody is telling me that they feel this way. And then you're equipping and empowering them to do the work to be honest with themselves so that they can have that ripple effect on their teams, their communities, and just people in their lives. So
Thank
thank you for coming and sharing all this great insight, wisdom. I know I'm taking a lot away from today's conversation.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And I want to share with everyone because sometimes people ask me this too. I'm not done. I am still going to trainings and receiving coaching and, reading books and still like filling up my cup because just because I am a teacher of this and a coach of this doesn't mean I run into moments of self doubt. I run into moments of I am not good enough or does my hair look good enough? Am I smart enough? Am I too old, too young? Like I still run into those moments and just I'm going to give you a little secret of the self-worth advantage. Those moments happen when you are faced with something new, when change is happening or there's like something intense. Like you may not know it in the moment, but it is such an intense moment that you're just thinking, oh gosh, like all of your comfort zone is like exposed in new change and intense moments. So that's all it is. And for leaders and for entrepreneurs, the cat's out of the bag. That's your journey. You must keep finding new and changing your company, or else it only makes $100,000 a year, $1,000,000 a year, 100. It doesn't, it must be new. It must change. It must innovate. It must pivot maybe or transform. But welcome.
Welcome. Well, and if you're listening, y'all know I always like to give you a takeaway to like maybe, think about as you move forward on this day. And I'm getting a lot of takeaways from this, but one of the things that I would really love for you to take today that I think Tiffany really just did a great job of trying to encourage us to do. And that is be honest with yourself and just remember that, hey, look, we're all trying to do this journey one day at a time, but the more you get honest, maybe the more you can discover all the things that are awesome about you and that'll trickle into all areas of your life and world. Until next time. That's all for today on Inspiring Possible. If you found a little inspiration today, please go on over to iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you tune in to listen to leave us a comment and rate us. Also, make sure and link up with me at inspiringpossible.com to get the free Dream It, Write It, Do It workbook. And don't forget to follow us on social media and share this with anyone who needs to be inspired. Remember, if you can believe it, it's possible.